Icon Audio Arts.
One of the mandates of Icon Audiobooks is to introduce and in some cases reintroduce people of all generations to the inspirational, classical, spiritual literature of the ages. The following audiobook falls into that very select and important category. Here you will find ageless wisdom, timeless truisms, and unbounded inspiration. From the ancient Hindu text, the Bhagavad Gita, to the voluminous Vedas, the teachings of great saints like Meher Baba, Paramhamsa Yogananda, Bhaktivedanta Swami, Khalil Gibran, and Ram Dass, to the humble parables of Jesus, the Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, as well as avatars such as Sri Krishna, Rama, and the Buddha. Icon casts the net wide to include the greatest insights of the ever-expanding spiritual universe. As an old incredible string band song goes, may the long-time sun shine upon you, all love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way home.
Death. It comes to us all. It is a sacrifice for the good life we lead at the end of our long, fortuitous road. Or is it? For millenniums, the yogis, sages, and munis of India, following the ancient Vedic path, have clearly spoken about the many and varied aspects of what we call in the West life after death. To the gross, unenlightened materialist, life begins with birth and ends with the final inevitable dissolution of the gross material body made of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. But to the enlightened ones, those who have passed by their mystical practice beyond the portals of ordinary life and death, they see it as nothing particularly special, and at most the unclouded end of the infinite beginning. It is true that while some of the more virtuous and godly among us may be lucky enough to escape the never-ending wheel of repeated birth and death known as samsara, there are far too many whose collective karma, known as samskara, command that they must return to this material world by the process of heartless reincarnation, or if they are particularly unlucky, hover around this gross, temporary material sphere for untold eons as homeless, restless, disembodied, hopeless spirits. It is of these unfortunate souls to whom we address this most unique, rare, and special Icon audiobook presentation. Here, for the first time, is the secret yoga of the ghostly realm. It is a roadmap of what happens from death to final salvation of all souls when the infinite spiritual spark of self returns to the vast, unlimited fire of the eternal Godhead. There is then hope for each and every soul which emanates from the compassionate original source. It is simply a matter of how long and hard is the road wherein each innately perfect spiritual entity finally reunites with the fathomless, bottomless, omniscient, omnipresent, original soul of all, the one mighty God of antiquity, of many names and forms. Please Then take heed and listen well, my friends, for this is a most imperative subject which today or tomorrow will intimately and ardently affect us all and those we cherish. Of all the philosophies, isms, religions, and school of thoughts, the most profound which I myself have experienced was that simple everyday utterance of my dear mother, whom, as I was leaving the house, reminded me simply to be good. If you don't want to end up a ghost, I humbly suggest that might well be a very good place to start. Remember, you are only a traveler. Even your soul is not your own, but rather a tiny drop of the great ocean of the unlimited. Flow then, make no distinctions, carry no favors, move on and be thankful for all you are privileged to see. These are lessons to move you on. Do not invest yourself in anything beyond the journey. You are then a traveler in grace. Namaskar. May all peace be with you on your divine journey home.
Some Thoughts on Ghosts by Meher Baba. In unanticipated accidental death, the ordinary ego mind has a moderate tendency to gravitate towards the gross sphere and cling to it because of the ego mind's attachment to the gross world. Although a ghost caught in the semi-subtle sphere suffers even more acutely than does the ego mind experiencing the hell state, the latter achieves some exhaustion of evil samskars, while the former does not. Further, the sufferings of the ghosts who maintain their link with their earthly life are more tantalizing, because the link constantly holds before them the prospect of fulfillment of gross desires, without the actual means for their satisfaction. Regardless of the abnormality of the circumstances which may lie in the back of it, no type of death can really damn the individual forever. It is never more than an incident in a long spiritual journey. The repetition of the name of God or of the Scriptures often practiced after the death of a person has a wholesome effect both on those who have been left behind as well as the one who has passed away, because they help to free both parties of their mutual samskaric attachment to form. On the other hand, the lamentation and wailing that is often observed has a degrading and depressing effect both on those left behind as well as the person who has passed away, for it tends to strengthen mutual attachment to form. The intensity of the sufferings or pleasures which the individual experiences through these revived samskars is so great that a greater exhaustion of these samskars is brought about during a relatively short period that is possible in hundreds of years of suffering or pleasure in earthly life. It is these posthumous mental states of intense suffering and pleasure which are respectively known in religious literature as heaven and hell. In popular belief, they are incorrectly regarded as places or spheres. It is more appropriate to think of a heaven state or a hell state rather than individual places. Lower spirits are those beings without physical forms whose samskars remain to be wiped out. They cannot progress after death until their unfinished samskars are worked out. As a consequence, they wander about on the lower astral plane. For this reason, they are a source of harassment to living people. There are certain cases where the gross body is compelled to drop before the person's samskars are completely used up. Such is the case when a person commits suicide. The body is gone, but the momentum of all the impressions goes on. This person is now a ghost. The ghost wants to eat, drink, etc. very, very badly, so much so that it takes to unnatural resources by entering someone else's body. It awaits its opportunity. When it finds you drinking, it satisfies its desire by drinking through you, through your body. When it has to experience anger, then when you are angry, it experiences it through your body. This is fact. Ghosts are miserable. They have desires like any of us. They try to come in contact with human beings to fulfill their desires. When it is dark and silent, their subtle, smoky bodies become transparent. You have gross, subtle, and mental bodies. They have only subtle and mental bodies, but these are not as limited as the gross. When stretched out, their subtle body stretches out in all directions, upwards and sideways. That makes you shiver and scream when you see them like that. Depending on their surroundings, darkness and quietude, they can be seen. Their bodies can enlarge and shrink. That is why in dreams the subtle bodies go anywhere, stretching out. They can also be photographed in suitable conditions, depending upon the surroundings, time, light, and the photographer. Ghosts are departed spirits who have been too much attached to the gross world. After dropping their physical body, they still desire to live in close contact with the gross. They continue to gravitate in the lower subtle and astral planes. Their astral sheath or envelope is automatically actuated by the impressions concerning the gross and keeps them tied to the gross for long periods. Ghosts are often people who have committed suicide or died by accident and have no body. They enter another body and then make the body of whomsoever they enter do as they wish. These discarnate spirits wish to contact living human beings. If a heavy smoker has no body and for some reason becomes a ghost, she does not get another physical body until certain samskars are spent. They may be spent in 1 year or 1,000,000. It all depends on the contacts made to spend one's samskars. The subtle can enter any gross body or thing. When it enters you, you don't even know it, and are not at all affected. But it can only enter your body when you are not conscious, when you are sleeping. But the spirit has no real hold. It does not reside in you or possess you, but just goes through like the wind. And it only happens sometimes, so don't think about it, or you will go mad. It is of no real importance. It is trivial, insignificant. Don't be afraid of ghosts. They don't do us any real harm. The atmosphere is always full of such impressions. The astral world is the realm between the gross and subtle realms. It is also called the semi-subtle world. Most souls go here between lives before and after experiencing the heaven or hell states. A ghost is an earthbound spirit who has usually desires of lust to work off and who tries to fulfill them through others. There are advanced yogis and munis who converse with these ghosts who have committed suicide, as well as with the spirits of the higher planes. These advanced souls communicate without using a medium, as they live on both levels. One who has contracted many bad samskars during his earthly life experiences after death the state called hell, wherein the susceptibility to suffering is increased tenfold, and the capacity for enjoyment is proportionately diminished. In the hell state there is only suffering until all those samskars which induce this state are exhausted. The impressions remaining compel the soul to rebirth in a human body. The condition of one who arrives at death through suicide requires special explanation. Such a one goes neither upwards nor downwards. Neither does he immediately reincarnate, nor pass into heaven or hell. Such spirits remain suspended closer to the earth plane, inasmuch as no entry is possible for them in any of the aforementioned states. Their condition is pitiable in the extreme, because they too feel the pull of their samskars, but unlike those on earth, they have no gross body in which to fulfill their desires. These are the ones in common parlance we call ghosts or disembodied spirits. It is these spirits whom mediums can sometimes contact, and they prove a source of harm as well as good. Sometimes such a spirit tries to possess a human body with which it feels an affinity due to similar samskars. If, for example, a person who is otherwise eligible for the heaven state commits suicide, he remains suspended near the earth plane, and if he comes in contact with a human being, does him no harm. But if one, through his bad samskars, was eligible for hell, dies before his time, then he may become a source of harm and pain to those whom he contacts. The relatively good spirits, however, usually seek redress through yogis, or they seek to serve a perfect master in the darkness of night. Yet owing to karmic law, it takes many cycles for such suspended spirits to have the chance of reincarnating again in human form through the aid of a master. The evil spirits run as far as possible from the perfect one. Both good and bad suspended spirits can sometimes work out their samskars through a human being, if they can find one with similar samskars and suitable past karmic connections. However, the ignorant victims of such possession by a suspended spirit may suffer physically and materially, though spiritually they are benefited to the extent of dispensing with 3 or 4 incarnations. It is the spirits that are waiting in this waiting room of a semi-subtle sphere that are likely to enter into communications with those who are in the gross sphere. They may be either on the point of going to heaven or hell, or they may have finished their term of pleasure and pain in heaven or hell, as the case may be. Or they may be directly awaiting reincarnation following their last physical death. But it is only these spirits that can be communicated with, though not quite always with mathematical precision, as is believed by many.
A bhoot is a supernatural creature, usually the ghost of a deceased person in the popular culture, literature, and the ancient text of the Vedas. Interpretations of how bhoots come into existence vary by region and community, but they are usually considered to be perturbed and restless due to some factor which prevents them from moving on to transmigration, non-being, nirvana, heaven or hell, depending on the tradition. This could be a violent death, unsettled matters in their lives, or simply the failure of their survivors to perform proper funerals. The belief in ghosts is deeply ingrained in the minds of the people of India across generations. The various concepts of ghosts trace their roots in the vast bodies of Hindu mythology, its religious texts, literature, and folk tales. There are many alleged haunted places in India, such as cremation grounds, dilapidated buildings, royal mansions, forts, forest bungalows, burning ghats. Ghosts also occupy a significant place in the Bengali culture. Ghosts and various supernatural entities form an integral part of the socio-cultural beliefs of both Hindu and Muslim communities of rural Bengal. Bhoots are able to alter and assume forms of various animals at will, but are usually seen in human form. However, their feet often reveal them to be ghosts, as they are backwards facing. As the earth is regarded as sacred or semi-sacred in many traditions of the Indian subcontinent, bhoots go to lengths to avoid contact with it, often floating above it, either imperceptibly or a foot above. Bhoots cast no shadows, and speak with a nasal twang. They often lurk on specific trees and prefer to appear in white clothing. Sometimes bhoots haunt specific houses, the so-called bhoot bungalows or bhoot bungalows, which are typically places they were killed, or which have some other significance to the bhoot. Many ghost stories in the region combine all of these elements. For instance, they might involve a protagonist who fails to flee or take countermeasures when they run across a bhoot. Instead, they unwittingly accept the bhoot's companionship, which makes the ghost a companion as she walks through a forest, picks up the ghost in his car because it looks like an attractive woman waiting by the roadside at night, etc. They become progressively aware that their companion is dressed entirely in white and has a funny nasal voice, before the horrifying realization dawns on them that their companion's feet are turned backwards, or she is not casting a shadow in the moonlight, or is walking without actually touching the ground. Bhoots are said to seek out milk and immerse themselves in it. Consuming bhoot-contaminated milk is considered a typical route for bhoot possession for humans, which has been a frequent plot element in bhoot stories. A particular kind of bhoot, that of a woman that died during pregnancy or childbirth, is known as a chundail. Chundails look like human women, but their feet are turned backwards or other features are turned upside down. They can change their forms at any time. Chundails often try to lure young men at road crossings and fields or similar places. If a man is enamored of a chundail, it is believed that she will cause his death. There are, however, stories of people living with a chundail, or even marrying one. In many regions, bhoots are supposed to fear water and steel or iron objects, so keeping these nearby is believed to scare them off. The scent of burnt turmeric is also said to ward them off. As is typical of ghosts throughout the world, invoking the name of holy figures and deities is also said to repel bhoots. In some regions, sprinkling earth on oneself is said to shield one against bhoots. According to Hindu philosophy, the soul cannot be destroyed by any means, as a bhoot is just a deceased, lost, or angry soul. The Hindu exorcists do not or cannot destroy them, but in turn performs a ritual according to the Vedas, called the Atma Shanti, which is just a modified Shraddha, or death anniversary, done by those haunted by the bhoot, to promise it that everything in the power that they possess will be done to either assure the rebirth of the bhoot or finish the works left incomplete by the bhoot, or both. Thus the bhoot gets what it wants and will stop troubling those haunted by it forever. Some Thoughts on Death by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. When a man dies, he is called dead. But when he again appears in a subtle form not visible to our present vision and yet acts, such a dead body is called a ghost. Ghosts are always very bad elements, always creating a fearful situation for others. It is practically experienced, says Srila Prabhupada. I know that if you go into a house which is ghostly haunted, and you chant the Hare Krishna mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, they will go away. They cannot tolerate this. In my life, there were several incidences like that. In my household life, I was doing business in Lucknow. So there was one house, one very beautiful house, worth thousands of rupees monthly in rent. But it was ghostly haunted, so nobody would take it. I took it at 200 rupees. And it was a very big house. All of the servants complained, "Sir, there is a ghost." So I was chanting continually. He was living in several spots, especially at the gate. So I could understand, but I would chant Hare Krishna, and I was saved. Everyone was saved. You know, in 1969, I was a guest in the house of John Lennon in London. There was a ghost in it, in the guest house. So they complained, "Sir, there is a ghost." So I advised them simply to chant the Hare Krishna mantra, and the ghost went away. Yes, this is fact. Where there is Hare Krishna chanting, these ghostly, demonic, living entities, they'll not be able to stay there. They will go away. Those who are very sinful and attached to their family, house, village, or country do not receive a gross body made of material elements, but remain in a subtle body, composed of mind, ego, and intelligence. Those who live in such subtle bodies are called ghosts. This ghostly position is very painful, because a ghost has intelligence, mind, and ego, and wants to enjoy material life, but because he doesn't have a gross material body, he can only create disturbances for want of material satisfaction.
It is therefore the duty of family members, especially the son, to offer oblations to the demigod Yama or to Lord Vishnu. From time immemorial in India, the son of a dead man goes to the Gaya, and at a Vishnu temple there offers oblations for the benefit of his ghostly father. It is not that everyone's father becomes a ghost, but the oblations of Pinda are offered to the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, so that if a family member happens to become a ghost, he will be favored with a gross body. However, if one is habituated to taking the prasadam of Lord Vishnu, there is no chance of his becoming a ghost or anything lower than a human being. In Vedic civilization, there is a performance called Shraddha, by which food is offered with faith and devotion. If one offers oblations with faith and devotion to the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu or to his representative, the forefathers will attain material bodies to enjoy whatever material enjoyment is due them. In other words, they do not have to become ghosts. The word ekapada, or one-legged, refers to ghost, for it is said that ghosts walk on but one leg. Because of his desire to enjoy the material world, the living entity is dressed with the material and gross bodies. Thus he is given a chance to enjoy the senses. The senses are therefore instruments for enjoying the material world. Consequently, the senses have been described as friends. Sometimes, because of too much sinful activity, however, the living entity does not get a material gross body, but hovers on the subtle platform. This is called ghostly life. Because he is not possessing a gross body, he creates a great deal of trouble in his subtle body. Thus the presence of a ghost is horrible for those who are living in the gross body. Sometimes the living entity is forced to give up his body and enter into another one according to the judgment of Yamaraj. It is difficult, however, for the conditioned soul to enter another body unless the present dead body is annihilated through cremation or some other means. The living being has attachment for the present body and does not want to enter another, and thus in the interim he remains a ghost. If a living being who has already left his body has been pious, Yamaraj, just to give him relief, will give him another body. Since the living being in the body of the king had some attachment to his body, he was hovering as a ghost, and therefore Yamaraj, as a special consideration, approached the lamenting relatives to instruct them personally. Yamaraj approached them as a child, because a child is not restricted, but is granted admittance anywhere, even to the palace of a king. Besides this, the child was speaking philosophy. People are very much interested in hearing philosophy when it is spoken by a child. After giving up the body, one is transferred to another. But sometimes, if one is too sinful, he is checked from transmigrating to another body, and thus he becomes a ghost. To save a diseased person from ghostly life, the funeral ceremony or Shraddha ceremony, as prescribed in the authorized Shastras, must be performed. Ravan was killed by Lord Ramachandra and was destined for hellish life, but by Lord Ramachandra's advice, Ravana's brother performed all the duties prescribed in relation to the dead. Thus Lord Ramachandra was kind to Ravana, even after his death. We have, of course, all heard of people being haunted by ghosts. Having no gross material body, a ghost seeks shelter of a gross body to stay and haunt. There was one ghost who had taken shelter of a hand cart and was looking for the opportunity to do mischief to Krishna. When Krishna kicked the cart with his small and very delicate legs, the ghost was immediately pushed down to the earth and his shelter dismantled as already described. This was possible for Krishna because he has full potency. If a man becomes deeply disappointed and cuts his own throat, or hangs himself, perhaps eats some poison, does that mean that he is finished? No. It means he is a rascal. He does not know.
By finishing the body he is finished up. That is not possible. The result is, because he violated the rules of nature, he will become a ghost. This is his life. One who commits suicide becomes a ghost. Ghost means he does not get this material body. He remains in his subtle body, mind, and intelligence. Therefore, the ghost can go because he is in the mind. Mind speed is very strong. If you have got this material body, you cannot go immediately hundreds of miles away. But if you are in a mental body, you can go immediately thousands of miles, immediately within even 1 second. So the ghosts, they can play something wonderful, because they are not happy that they have no gross body, but still they want to enjoy. This type of entity is a materialist. He has committed suicide for some material want, so he is in want of something, an unfulfilled material desire. He could not fulfill this in his body, therefore he commits suicide, but the desire is still there. The desire is there, and yet he cannot fulfill it. He becomes perplexed. Therefore the ghost creates disturbances sometimes. You mention ghosts. So far as I have experience, the best way to remove them is to chant Hare Krishna very loudly and have jubilant kirtans until they leave. A ghost does not enter a body, but rather catches it. Because the ghost has no gross body, he has got his subtle body, mind, intelligence, and ego. You cannot see him, how he has attacked this body. You cannot see the body of mind and intelligence. You know I have got my mind. I know that you have got your mind. But you do not see my mind, and I do not see your mind. So the ghost is within the subtle body, mind, intelligence, and ego. So with that subtle body, he attacks the man, but you cannot see it. He does this to enter into him. Sometimes when a ghost attacks a man because he has no material body, he wants to act through the other's body. So the man who is attacked forgets himself, and he speaks and walks according to the dictation of the ghost. This is called a ghostly haunted man. He talks nonsense. Suppose his father comes before him. He calls him by many ill and vulgar names like that. So anyone who is too much materially affected, he also talks complete nonsense. The one and only treatment is bhakti or devotional yoga. Therefore, sometimes a ghost is walking in a room. We cannot see it, but he takes away something. We see that the thing is going away. Because you cannot see his gross body, and because he hasn't got a gross body, he can move very swiftly. Now he is here, then he is 10 miles away immediately, but there is a ghost, and they attack especially women. Suicide is never justified. It is a violation of nature's law. Nature's law gives you a certain type of body to live in for certain days, and suicide means you go against the laws of nature. You untimely stop the duration of your life. Therefore, you must become a ghost. Ghosts are bereft of a physical body because of their grievously sinful acts, such as suicide. The last resort of the ghostly characters in human society is to take shelter of suicide, either material or spiritual. A confused and frustrated man cannot get relief by committing suicide, because suicide will simply lead him to take birth in the lower species of life or to remain a ghost unable to attain a gross material body. Therefore, the perfect course is to retire altogether from sinful activities and take up Krishna consciousness. In this way, one can become completely perfect and go back to home, back to Godhead. Acts such as suicide are influenced by the mode of ignorance, and in ignorance and in passion one cannot ever understand who the Lord Sri Krishna is. When one misunderstands, he misunderstands everything. One who commits a mistake, he can commit mistakes in so many ways. They want to merge into the absolute. They think there is no variety, so to avoid this variety, what do? Well, just like sometimes one is suffering from some disease, they commit suicide. He thinks, I'm suffering. If I commit suicide, then everything will be stopped. But he does not know that by committing suicide, he'll increase another set of varieties of a miserable condition of life. He will become a ghost, most certainly. And becoming ghostly, you cannot enjoy anything gross. The subtle body will create a disturbance. Therefore, the ghost creates disturbances. He hasn't got a gross body to enjoy. They're ghostly haunted. Therefore, a male ghost haunts over woman, and a woman ghost haunts over a man. You know that? That is how it happens. Ghostly haunted. We learn from an instance of Sanatana Goswami. He was sometimes very sick on account of eczema, and he was therefore sometimes bleeding profusely. But whenever Lord Chaitanya met Sanatana Goswami, he used to embrace him in spite of Sanatana's request for him not to touch him. Because of this, Sanatana Goswami later on decided to commit suicide so that Lord Chaitanya would not embrace him in his bloody condition. This plan was understood by Lord Chaitanya, and he called Sanatana Goswami and said to him, You have decided to end this body. But don't you know? This body belongs to Krishna. You have already dedicated your body to Krishna, so how can you decide to end it? One day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to Sanatana Goswami, Your decision to commit suicide is the result of the mode of ignorance. One cannot get love of God simply by committing suicide. You have already dedicated your life and body to my service. Therefore, your body does not belong to you, my brother, nor do you have any right to commit suicide. I have to execute many devotional services through your body. I want to preach the cult of devotional service and go to Vrindavan to evacuate the lost holy places, and I need your help. Simply by committing suicide, how will you be happy? You'll have to accept another body. Either you commit suicide or you die naturally. You must accept this. But if you accept natural death and natural body, then your karma kasya, you annihilate your karma. But if you commit suicide, you will become a ghost. Because nature's punishment is always there. You got a body, but you neglected it. You abused it. In the end, you murdered it. So now you must become and remain without any body. Ghost means one who does not possess a material body, but he has this subtle body. So without knowledge, what is the aim of life? What is actual life? If somebody is so misguided by so-called guides or gurus, then his life will be spoiled. To commit suicide by taking poison is perhaps the most abominable thing. He'll be punished to become a ghost. Or if one is suddenly killed by an accident, and he has so many desires, he also becomes a ghost. Therefore, taking poison and dying untimely is most abominable. Or to commit suicide, by the material law, to even attempt suicide, is criminal. Each and every living entity is eternal. Now he may think that by killing this body, he will be free from his bodily miserable condition of life, but no. Either he has to accept another abominable body, or he'll have to become a ghost. If by frustration one commits suicide, that is not the end of his miseries. He creates yet more misery. He creates another misery by committing suicide, just like here in the state law. If somebody attempts suicide and takes poison, and if by the treatment of a physician he is all right, he is again under the law to be punished. Similarly, in the laws of nature, if you commit suicide, that is a criminal act. So suicidal policy to end this misery of life is not at all. We must have, and I mean to say, a greater life. In the Bhagavad Gita it is written, one has to end this miserable life after finding a life of eternity, knowledge, and bliss, or Sat
Chit Ananda. We should not be trying only to end these miseries of life, expecting something void. No, this will never work. Practically speaking, 99% of the entire population is committing suicide. As it is natural for a gentleman to try to stop a person committing suicide when it happens just in one's presence, similarly, when we see that so many men and women are simply committing suicide as described in the Ishopanishad, it is said, let us try to save them through this Krishna consciousness movement. Some thoughts on ghosts from the teachings of Paramhamsa Yogananda. The word ghost comes from the German Geist, which simply means spirit. Certainly spirits can be seen and sometimes communicated with. There are many kinds of spirits, some of which are departed human beings, and they are ghosts. However, other kinds of spirits can also be seen. There are animal spirits, nature spirits, and spirits that wander in from other worlds or dimensions and get trapped here. Some spirits are positive, some negative, and some neutral. Sri Ramakrishna said to a young man who was a spiritualist medium, "My boy, if you think of ghosts, you will become a ghost. If you think of God, you will become God. Now which do you prefer?" It is good not to get too involved with spirits, especially those that are earthbound and seek help. There is a kind of spook network which passes around the world, and if you help a spirit, others will start showing up and also asking for help. One time I helped some spirits in a local cemetery, and the next time I went to a church in a distant city, the president of the church committee, who had just left his body, came right up to me and said, "Do for me what you did for those people in the cemetery. If you are not careful, you will be drawn into unwise or too much contact with spirits. I had to learn when to say no." Sending out Om vibrations to an individual who is no longer in his body can be helpful to a spirit. But if it causes spirits to start flocking to you and bothering you, then you should stop it. Be very cautious regarding contact with spirits, lest you become distracted and over-involved with them. Sometimes you have to be very firm about not doing so, and I speak from experience. Now the question is, how to drive away bad spirits? How does the average person do it? How do monks do it? And how do the advanced metaphysicians get rid of demons? I will explain. If you are troubled at bedtime or have been during the night by mischievous spirits, before going to sleep, write the word Om or Amen on your pillow with your fingers. Mentally visualize a white light around your body, and look at your spiritual eye and say several times, mentally and loudly, "I am light. Darkness, fly away. Protect me from any negative vibrations, spirits, or entities." Also, you can touch the palms of your hands in front of your body and then swing them behind your back in rapid succession 3 times, chanting Om, and you will be protected. If someone is possessed by a bad spirit, touch his forehead with the forefingers of your right hand. Put your forefingers of your left hand over the medulla, which is behind the head at the base, and then press both hands and look through your own spiritual eye and say, "By the astral light I scorch thee and command thee to get out." According to Paramhamsa Yogananda, to dislodge and remove an unclean spirit from someone's brain calls for powerful divine willpower and concentration. If the healer has dynamic spiritual power, he can throw the entity out by using silent willpower and continuously staring into the eyes of the distressed person, inwardly commanding the unclean trespasser to go. If the will of the healer is stronger than the evil spirits, the evil entity will depart. Repeating the sound of Om and by whispering it in the right ear of the stricken person, the unclean spirit is most certain to go away. These tramp souls, being from the dark lower astral regions, cannot tolerate the spiritual thoughts and higher vibrations from the utterance of the holy words, particularly Om. Om, repeatedly whispered in the right ear. This typically brings forth a rapid, terrified reply from the spirit, "Don't say that holy word! I will leave!" This identifies spirit possession. However, there are some devil spirits who are unwilling to leave and will not obey this command to get out and will fight against even this holiest of vibrations. The Master tells us of a case where the powerful vibration of Om was used to shake and dislodge an intruding spirit, but this only created convulsions in the bedeviled man. When finally the unclean entity violently came out of this man's body, leaving him shaken and limp, but not harmed due to the divine intervention. Those people who witnessed the removal of this evil spirit were in wonder of the supreme authority by which the demonic spirit was forced to obey. When you encounter the real thing, actual possession consists of the presence of someone's body, of a spirit that has thrown off its own physical form and in its astral body completely or partially incapacitates the coherent faculties or common sense of the one being possessed. Only in the condition of a mother carrying a child can a human body accommodate an additional being besides its own self. However, expert metaphysicians are capable of differentiating between real cases of spirit possession with metaphysical powers and able to detect the invisible astral form of that visitor next to the astral body of one being possessed. For the layman, however, it is a different story. The only way to conclude a genuine case of spirit possession is by evaluating the many states or spasms and outrageous behavior of which a person possessed is subject. The true signs of a person possessed by an evil spirit are lack of natural behavior, bloodshot eyes, uncommon physical strength, and uncanny expressions. In true cases of spirit possession, bestial irrationality has been described and displayed in some exorcisms. With the attraction of his own sinful vibrations, like attracts like. A man can draw unto himself an evil spirit. A wicked, unclean spirit can keep the mind of a possessed person in a state of neutrality, sub-hypnosis, and suspension, so that the mechanism of consciousness, senses, body, and brain of the victim could be controlled without intervention. The possessed man may or may not be conscious within his evil-controlled body, as a person who is semi-conscious under the state of hypnosis may display the state of sleep. If possession from disembodied souls or unclean devils persists for too long, great harm is done to the sense organs and mind of the possessed person, causing a real life-threatening long-term possibility of insanity. There is an instructive article by Yogananda in Man's Eternal Quest called What Are Ghosts? He explains that at death we leave the physical body, and then all of us become ghosts, meaning disincarnate astral beings living in the astral world. Some souls, however, due to strong attachment, don't cross over there, but rather remain bound to this physical world. He calls them tramp souls. Occasionally, they even succeed in possessing someone's human body and mind, taking what he calls a free ride. Such possession can only happen, Yogananda explains, when a person's mind is mentally unstable or blank. These discarnate spirits can sometimes make themselves felt. They can make noises or move objects. In the book of Conversations with Yogananda, you can read this intriguing story. One night, those living near the master's apartment on Mount Washington heard a loud sound of clanking metal. The following morning they learned the cause of that tumult. The noise that previous night had been caused by a Spanish soldier. He had materialized in full armor to ask for the Master's blessing that he be released. In what way, I have no idea. From what I understand, the Master gave him the release that he sought. It seems that the world of spirits and ghosts is very vast, containing all kinds of things. Yogananda writes in his autobiography, "The ordinary astral universe is peopled also with myriads of fairies, mermaids, fishes, animals, goblins, gnomes, demigods, and spirits, all residing on different astral planets in accordance with karmic qualifications. Quite apart from God and true masters, it seems best to concentrate on angels, not on all of the rest, as we attract and magnetize what we concentrate upon. Angels roam the streets of man, Swami Kriyananda has written. In a talk, Yogananda once said, 1,000,000 angels are passing here right now, and you don't see them. It's good to know, isn't it? And he also says very importantly, angels are made on earth, not in heaven. It's good to know that too. Our salutations, adorations, and prostrations to all of those who have gone ahead of us, who have gained more experience, and who are before us now as ideals and beacons of light in life. Today we offer our adorations to all of those who are not visible to our physical eyes, but who lived on this earth plane and who now experience a different state of consciousness. We offer our gratitude to all of those who have gone before us and shown us the path. By the remembrance of all souls, we mean the remembrance of everything that has ever been created. It does not necessarily mean those who exist in a prita condition, in the astral body, but those who have abandoned their physical body and who have taken another physical body also receive our prayers. Those who exist in Svarlok receive our prayers, and those who live in Gandharvalok, and all of those who experience pain and suffering also receive our prayers. Our prayers reach up to Brahmalok and the Sura Mandala, because our prayers are the expression of our divine soul. You know that there are various kinds of human beings. Similarly, there are various kinds of departed souls. There are some people that feel it is very difficult to understand how the efforts of a person in this world can influence the conditions and experiences of a person in the other world. This doubt arises on account of a lack of understanding and a lack of knowledge. We must know that the universe is an organic whole. It is not dead matter. It is vibrating with energy, life, and consciousness. The universe is one whole. If anything happens to any part of my body, my whole body feels it. So is the case with everything in this universe. Every atom of this universe is connected with every other atom in this universe. Planes are only relative. They are not absolute values. They are valid only to individuals. Hence, an act or a thought or a feeling which is originated at any particular part of the universe shall influence others also with that degree of intensity with which it is generated. If the prayer is intense, it will be felt there in a corresponding degree of intensity. The act of Shraddha is an example. When we offer foodstuffs or other articles which are all used in the name of the departed soul, we mean they should be received by that person there. In this world of materialism, people who have no belief in the higher values doubt the validity of this act. How does a physical act in this world influence a subtle body that is in yet another world? This may be explained by a modern analogy. Take, for example, telegraphic conveyance of money. If a person wants to send a money order, he just pays the required amount to the post office in his own town,
and wishes that this amount should be received by the person concerned at some other distant place. Now that same money is not received by the other person, it is here itself. The post office in the other town receives the intelligence of the sender's wish. Only the feeling, the understanding is conveyed, and that works wonders. The intelligence causes a corresponding action to take place. The person receives the amount at that distant place. The same is the case with Shraddha. It is the symbol of an internal feeling, of bhava or love. Shraddha is something more than mechanical action. It is an act of prayer with bhava and feeling. We must not underrate our thoughts and feelings. Our thoughts are omnipotent. Every thought will fructify, today or tomorrow, in this form or another. When we do charity in the name of a departed soul, this intelligence is conveyed to him through the planes of consciousness. These departed souls receive there what we give here, because we transmit an intelligence to those who are in charge of the person concerned that such and such a thing should be given to the person there. That great selfless act of sacrifice in the name of the departed gives wonderful benefit to him. This is possible on account of the unity of the universe, because of the omniscience of God, because He is the sovereign of the universe, because He is the dispenser of justice with His supreme wisdom. Just as there are various kinds of men, there are various kinds of departed souls. So various prayers of different intensities are offered. Take human beings alone. All human beings are not in the same stage of evolution. We have animal men, those who have human bodies but animal qualities. Then we have men superior to them, ordinary men, who are not bad, but are not particularly good either. That is the second stage. Thirdly, we have good men. They are virtuous. Superior to them, we have saintly men. They are not merely good. They have started to unfold the divine consciousness. Lastly, we have the divine man, or the God-man. These various kinds of people reach different conditions and have different experiences when they leave the material body. Of course, those who are self-realized are not in need of our prayers at all. They themselves are very powerful. Their self-experience and knowledge are so powerful, so great, and so valuable that they will help themselves. But all are not saints. All are not God-men. Those who have not reached this stage require the help of others. Our Puranas say that the soul after death passes through different experiences. It is said that an ordinary person in whom there is a mixture of good and evil, when he dies, is taken to Yamalok in the beginning. If his evil traits preponderate, he will be taken to Yamalok. Scriptures further say that an ordinary person does not remember his past experiences. He is in a state of swoon the moment he casts off the physical body. Our prayers give him consciousness. They give him fresh energy and solace. Because he is not a virtuous man, he is suffering. Our acts of sacrifice shall be very beneficial to him. Even when the person goes to Yamalok, he will be helped there by our acts of sacrifice. But a person who has read the Vedas, who has led a virtuous life, remembers his past experiences, but others do not. The Puranas say that a danda, called the Yamadanda, is kept on the head of such a person so that he may remember his past life. It is described as a burning iron rod. At once he remembers all of his past life on earth. Then the dispenser of justice puts the question, "You have done so many evil deeds. What do you intend to do about them?" Then it is said the soul gives the reply, "I have got my relatives. They are capable of doing what is good for me. They will perform all the rituals on my behalf, and then I shall free myself from all of these experiences of pain." Then it is said that the soul is sent back to the earth. It takes about 12 days. That is why we perform the ceremony on the 11th and 12th day. The soul is brought back to the earth and is made to watch what is happening there. Before that time, the body should be buried or burnt, because attachment to the body is so much that the very perception of the corpse will create a desire in the soul to enter it once again. But those who are in charge of it will not allow this, and this would be a condition of great suffering. And so, on the 11th and 12th days, we should offer prayers, perform havan, and do charity, etc. Generally, we perform a yajna for the peace of the soul and for the satisfaction of all those who are in charge of the soul. Otherwise, it will not be able to experience the things that are sent from here. First of all, bali, an offering of boiled rice, etc., is offered, which is for the satisfaction of Yama. It is said that this act will satisfy Yama, and he will free it from bondage. It is necessary that the soul should be purged of the evil deeds it has done. So Bhagavat Sapta and other sacrifices and yagnas are performed. Then we are told that the soul is released from Yamalok, and it goes to Rudra Lok, and there it becomes one with the Ganas of Rudra Lok. In order that it may be released from that place, we have to perform the Rudra Yagna. Then Rudra releases it from the state of Gana, and it shines in a lustrous body, and goes on to Brahma Lok. It is initiated into the divine mysteries by Brahma himself, and attains moksha. So gradually, the soul, which is not very virtuous, which has not done any good deeds on earth, is also enabled to reach the higher planes of consciousness through our acts of prayers and sacrifice. In this connection, we must remember that the pains which are experienced by the departed souls are intensified by the sufferings and the grief expressed by those who are on the earth. The scriptures emphatically say that after the death of a person, no teardrop of grief should fall to the ground from anybody's eyes. It does not in any way help the departed soul. On the other hand, even a soul which is about to enter heaven will be brought back if his people are crying here. No one should therefore weep or cry, but everyone must pray for the peace of the departed soul. The person who has left the body can be given whatever he needs from here. Study of scriptures is a great help, offering of prayers, performing havans, and doing charitable deeds, and even contemplation on God for his sake. All of these are of the greatest use. When a person meditates on God for the sake of the peace of the departed soul, it is said that it will be enabled even to attain moksha. The knowledge of the Guru is powerful enough to enter the heart of the disciple to dispel his ignorance. Even so is the relation between the person existing here and the departed soul. For the sake of the departed soul we can meditate. It is possible to send our powerful currents of concentration and meditation to enable it to reach higher states of consciousness. For this sake, we must bear in mind that we are part and parcel of the universe, even as the departed souls are, and there is not much difference really between the person who exists in a physical body and one who exists in an astral or some other kind of body. Our prayers are capable of producing an effect immediately. Our prayers are expressions of soul consciousness. The prayers should be absolutely selfless. It is necessary that the ideal of personal relationship should be removed when such prayers are offered. When such a relationship is kept up, the prayer becomes slightly tinged with selfishness and loses some of its value. We must offer prayers for all souls with an impartial attitude. Only then will it be extremely powerful and bring the desired result. We offer prayers not because we want anything in return for the prayers, but because we wish to radiate peace in the universe. When collective shraddha is done, when all people sit together and pray for the sake of the departed souls, it brings peace to everyone in this world. And even the person who has departed and has taken birth again, in fact, all living people will be benefited. Everyone's life will become peaceful, and everyone will lead a happy life on account of our charitable acts. It is really praying for the peace of the entire universe. So this offering of prayers on this sacred All Souls' Day is our attempt to bring peace to the universe and to realize in our practical life the oneness that is at the background of all phenomena. We are all one, whether we are in the physical body or astral body. Each should be grateful to the other. Each should pray for the other. Each should wish the good and happiness of the other, so that the entire universe will be a heaven of peace, a resting place of divine consciousness. Preta, also known as hungry ghost, is the Sanskrit name for a type of supernatural being described in Hinduism and also Vietnamese folk religion as undergoing suffering greater than that of humans, particularly an extreme level of hunger and thirst. Although they have their origins in Indian religions, they have also been adopted into other East Asian religions via the spread of Buddhism. Preta is often translated into English as hungry ghost, from the Chinese and Vietnamese adaptations. The descriptions below apply mainly to this narrower concept. The development of the concept of the Preta started with just thinking that it was the soul and the ghost of a person once they died, but later the concept developed into a transient state between death and obtaining karmic reincarnation in accordance with the person's fate. In order to pass into the cycle of karmic reincarnation, the deceased family must engage in a variety of rituals and offerings to guide the suffering spirit into its next life. If the family does not engage in these rites, which last for 1 year, the soul could remain in suffering as a Preta for the rest of eternity. Like any other mystical studies, exorcism also has a place in Hinduism from ancient times. The Hindu religion, as its endless horizon, also gives a contribution in exorcism. The last Veda, Athartha Veda, among the 4 Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sam Veda, Athartha Veda, contains mantras to control evils and calamities. But this Veda is going to fade out quickly due to a lack of expert practitioners. The Garuda Purana and Agni Purana also deal with exorcism. In both Vedic and Tantric tradition, mantra chanting and yagna is the way to create the total exorcism process. The eviction of the black spirit that possesses someone or some place is done with the help of mantras from the Athartha Veda in the name of God or supreme power. According to Hindu Shastra, the nature of the universe, Prakriti, is made of 3 gunas or qualities: Sato, Rajo, and Tamo. Sato gun is the fundamental of holiness, purity, and devotion. Under the inspiration of the Rajogun, a creature, not only a man, but everything in the universe, feels courage, power, and motivation for establishing wealth, fame, and valor. Tamogun, however, is an illness of mind, which indicates laziness, affection, and attraction for darkness. Darkness indicated here that causes degradation. It is the negative forces in the universe. In Hindu philosophy, every entity is tinged with these 3 natures. Entity, which we now imagine as a man, animal, or a place, a house, it could be anything, absorbs many energies of these 3 qualities. There can't be ultimately positive or negative creatures, but according to the presence of the dominant gunas is where they reflect themselves. Exorcism has a very wide view and meaning in the Hindu religion. Here, exorcism is not to wipe out the evil force from a man only. Exorcism may be performed to reduce negative force and other energies of the tamogun from a man, or maybe from a group of men, or a house or place, a country, anything and everything. There are many powerful mantras and rituals to perform these exorcisms. Yoga, Huma, Ahuti are all performed from the ancient history of India. So they're all things here we can call exorcism
from the Hindu religion. The Ganas, categories, are the host of spooks, hobgoblins, and spirits who accompany Lord Shiva. Some are said to dwell with him on Mount Kailash, while the more fearsome and terrifying Ganas are confined to the cremation grounds. It is told that Uma once asked Lord Shiva why he liked to reside in cremation grounds, which were abodes of demons, jackals, corpses, and vultures, when he had so many more beautiful places to go. Maheshwara replied that he had roamed the entire world looking for a pure place to meditate in. Unable to find one, he, out of anger and frustration, created these terrible flesh-eating ghouls and terrible rakshasas, intent upon killing people. Out of compassion, however, he kept this terrible horde in the cremation ground. As he did not want to live without the Bhutas and Ganas, he chose to live in a cemetery. When the ghosts stayed with him, they caused him no harm. The presence of the terrible Ganas also acted as an honor guard to Shiva and a bar to the impure. Those who feared the awful ghosts and goblins were destined to remain outsiders. Only heroes could be near him in the cremation ground, heroes who had defied death and liberated themselves from passions and fear. These were the true devotees, those who had nothing to fear, who had mastered the onslaught of the multiple categories of threatening powers that were fatal to those who were less than heroes and could not control the frightening phantoms because they had not controlled themselves. Lord Shiva is also called Bhutanath, being assisted by various types of powerful ghosts and denizens of the infernos, the Bhutas, the Pretas, and other beings. Of all the ghosts, the Brahma Rakshasas are very powerful. These are Brahmins who are transferred to the role of ghosts. Ghosts and mischievous hobgoblins are also the creation of Brahma, and they are not false. All of them are meant for putting the conditioned soul into various miseries. They are understood to be the creation of Brahma under the direction of the Supreme Lord. Lord Shiva is described here as the Guru, the spiritual master of all animate and inanimate objects. He is sometimes known as Bhutanath, which means the worship-able deity of the dull-headed. Bhuta is also sometimes taken to indicate ghosts. Lord Shiva takes charge of reforming persons who are ghosts and demons, not to speak of others who are godly. Therefore, he is the spiritual master of everyone, both the dull and demonic and the highly learned Vaishnavas. Lord Shiva, as described here as Bhutarat. The ghosts and those who are situated in the material mode of ignorance are called Bhutas. So Bhutarat refers to the leader of the creatures who are in the lowest standard of the material modes of nature. Another meaning of Bhuta is anyone who has taken birth or anything which is produced. So in that sense, Lord Shiva may be accepted as the father of this material world. In Calcutta, for instance, there are many butcher shops which keep a deity of the goddess Kali, and animal eaters think it's proper to purchase animal flesh from such shops and hope that they are eating the remnants of food offered first to the goddess Kali. They do not know that goddess Kali never accepts non-vegetarian food because she is the chaste wife of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is also a great Vaishnava and never eats non-vegetarian food, and the goddess Kali accepts the remnants of food left by Lord Shiva. Therefore, there is no possibility of her eating flesh or fish. Such offerings are accepted by the associates of the goddess Kali, known as Bhutas. And those who take the prasad of goddess Kali in the shape of flesh or fish are not actually taking the prasad left by goddess Kali, but the food left by the ghosts and Rakshasas. Lord Shiva has numerous forms which encompass every possible quality that the human mind can and cannot even imagine. Some are wild and fierce, some are enigmatic, others are endearing and charming. Shiva embraces every possibility, remaining ever untouched by all. Spirits are known to use their spiritual energies to harm humanity, and that is the reason why they are denoted by the name ghosts. The extent of possible harm they can cause to human beings departed on their spiritual strength, which is also generally dependent on the type of ghost or demon that they are. Everyone has read tales of Bhoot in their childhood, and hence from ages it remains fixed in our subconscious mind as long as we live. Bhoot or ghost are present in all shapes and sizes and are able to do all logic-defying things. If you happen to find a ghost who is dark in complexion and has glowing red eyes and bulging biceps, then it is called a pisacha. He is like a Superman. If you believe in the Hindu cosmology of the universe, then these are created by Brahma. These creatures feed on human energy and possess the human beings, turning them insane. Pisacha is also the name of the most inferior type of marriage. In Western culture there is a witch, and in Indian culture too there is the Chandal. She is a creature who sucks the blood of her victims, obviously men. Some people believe that they have their feet turned backwards. It is also believed that if a woman dies during childbirth or pregnancy because of negligence, then she may turn into a Chandal. A Dayan is an uglier version of a Chandal. She eats the flesh of her victims along with sucking their blood. She also has reversible feet syndrome and is said to have her powers in her braid. The male Preta are the ones who commit suicide in their lives, and Pritni is an unfortunate woman who dies without getting married. Preta and Pritni originated in Bengal, and their tales have carried them everywhere throughout India. They have gained a special respect in their spiritual breed. They are believed to do all the evil you can ever think of. Pritni also have this reverse feet syndrome, which makes her similar to Dayan or Chandal. A Brahmin who does evil deeds in his life becomes a Brahmin Rakshasa. They're also known to be brutal killers of the ghost world. There are many South Indian temples having idols which are worshipped by people. Jinn or genie could be good or bad, but aren't funny. They are depicted in the Aladdin series. Rakshasas are the commanders-in-chief of all evil spirits and are very deeply connected to the spirit world. They do the vilest of acts and are also the worst demons. They kill, and their only aim is to kill, whether it is for good or bad. You must keep in mind that this race is the king of the spirit world. Some people worship Rakshasas so as to complete their desires, but paying a huge cost. Kala Rakshasa is a renowned Rakshasa. It is a one-of-a-kind ghost which operates only at night, and hence it is named Nishi. It doesn't work in broad daylight, and calls its victim's name twice at night. If the victim turns back, then he is gone. In India, people don't respond to their names until called more than twice. The Beetal is the cruel ghost which is the smartest in the spirit world. These are environment lovers, and hence they love hanging on trees upside down. Not everyone is able to answer the moral of the Beetal anecdotes. Who would risk his head? The irregulars are amongst the lowest in the spirit world, and are also known only as stray ghosts. You can find them under bridges, abandoned palaces, and forts. Basically, you can find them anywhere eerie. They are the minions of the empire. Some are funny, while others are mischievous. We make note here of the effects of the Shraddha ritual. For the subtle body, Linga-diha, the interval from the time of death to the next birth is similar to that of a fetus in the womb. Due to the mantras of the Shraddha, the blessings of the Brahmins, the good wishes of relatives, the deceased ancestors acquire a kind of protective sheath and get the momentum to progress forward. Some thoughts on ghost from the teachings of Swami Vivekananda. In man and God, in ghosts, wraths, spirits, and so forth, in devas, beasts, birds, insects, and even in worms, this prema, or God's love, dwells in the heart of them all. Swami Vivekananda. 2 or 3 days after Swamiji returned back to Calcutta after visiting Kashmir in the year of 1898, a disciple asked, "Sir, these ghosts and departed spirits we hear about, which the Shastra scriptures also amply corroborate, are all these true or not?" Swami Vivekananda answers, "Certainly they are true. Whatever you don't see, are all false for all that? Beyond your sight, millions of universes are revolving at great distances. Because you do not see them, are they not existent for that? But then, do not put your mind on these subjects of ghosts and spirits. Your mental attitude towards them should be one of indifference. The duty is to realize the Atman, soul, within the body. When you realize the Atman, ghosts and spirits will be your slaves." The disciple says, "But, sir, I think that if one sees them, it strengthens one's belief in the hereafter and dispels all doubts about it." Says Swami Vivekananda, "You are heroes. Do you mean to say that even you shall have to strengthen your belief in the hereafter by seeing ghosts and spirits? You have read so many science and scriptures, have mastered so many secrets of this infinite universe. Even with such knowledge, you have to acquire the knowledge of the Atman soul by seeing ghosts and spirits?" The disciple, "Well, sir, have you ever seen such ghosts and spirits?" Swamiji then narrated that a certain deceased relative of his used to come to him as a disembodied spirit. Sometimes it used to bring him information about distant events, but on verification, some of the information was not found to be correct. Afterwards, at a certain place of pilgrimage, the Swami prayed for it mentally, wishing it might be released. Since then, he never saw it again. The disciple then questioned the master if the Shraddha prayers for the dead or other ceremonies appeased the departed spirits in any way. Swamiji replied, "That is not impossible." On the disciple's asking for the grounds of that belief, Swamiji said, "I will explain the subject to you at length some day. There are irrefutable arguments to prove that the Shraddha ceremony appeases the departed beings. Although the Vedanta believes in the existence of departed souls, it does not tell us to go to these departed spirits for enlightenment or true knowledge of our divine nature. These souls who are supposed to communicate with the living are called earthbound spirits, and they are mostly ignorant. They do not know themselves, so how can they teach others?" Modern spiritualism, seances, and mediumship to communicate with spirits of the dead has its place in the path of the investigation of truth, but it cannot help us in any way to the knowledge of our true or divine nature. It may satisfy the curiosity of those who seek to know whether there is such a thing as a living soul after death, and there it stops, but cannot illumine us to the beautiful light of the Atman or soul. Yes, it is true. Ghosts exist. But this does not mean that we become superstitious and live in fear of them. The Vedanta acknowledges the existence of ghosts and departed spirits. It tells us that apart from the world we are familiar with, exist other worlds in our universe which are quite subtle and beyond the realms of ordinary perception. Yet at the same time, Vedanta exhorts us not to waste our time dwelling upon such things, because all these worlds have an existence only within the domain of Maya, or that which is not, that which is in the confines of time, space, and causation. The entire universe, which is manifested within space and time, is but temporary. Everything in it, including the gross and subtle worlds, have a beginning and an end in time. Therefore, Vedanta says, do not focus on things of either this world or the next, because they are all Maya, an illusion, as they have no permanent existence. Forget about fearing or chasing ghosts and spirits. Rise above these temporary manifestations and strive in this very life itself to realize the one thing which is permanent, because it lies beyond time and space, the one eternal, unchanging reality, the undivided ocean of consciousness, of which our Atman or soul is an indivisible part.
Jeffrey Giuliano is the author of some 30 internationally best-selling books on the Beatles, John Lennon, and other iconic musicians of the 1960s. In 2006, his book, Paint It Black, The Murder of Brian Jones, was made into a film by Stephen Woolley and Nick Powell entitled Stoned, The Wild and Wicked World of Brian Jones. It remains a cult classic and the only film bio of the Rolling Stones. Giuliano is also a veteran journalist, having written for dozens of high-profile newspapers and magazines, including The Sunday People, The Daily Mail, The News of the World, The Mail on Sunday, Playgirl, and Rolling Stone. A noted film actor, Giuliano starred in such movies as Vikingdom, Scorpion King 3, Jules Verne's The Mysterious Island, The Fifth Execution, Far Cry 3, Fire Desire, among many. In addition, he hosted the long-running North American syndicated radio series, Jeffrey Giuliano's Roots of Rock, for 5 years, as well as pioneering the audiobook industry in the 1990s by authoring, narrating, and producing over 250 original, non-book-based, interview-driven productions. Giuliano's publishers included Random House, HarperCollins, Delta Entertainment, Durkin Hayes, Playaway Audio, Speechworks, and B&B Audio, among dozens more internationally. In 1998, Random House acquired his firm Tribute Audio, for which Giuliano acted as CEO and publisher for 5 years. His best-selling audiobook, That Fateful Night, True Stories of Titanic Survivors in Their Own Words, was nominated for a Grammy. In 2014, Jeffrey Giuliano founded Icon Editions and G2 Media Arts to market his updated works as well as publish new projects. As a visual artist, Jeffrey has been showing in galleries across America since 1977, garnering impressive reviews. His first professional assignment was designing several T-shirts for The Who's Pete Townsend in 1976. Jeffrey also designed and illustrated many of his original rock biographies for the biggest publishers in the world from 1984 to 2006, as well as designing for his pioneering record label, Samba Records, in the mid-1990s. From 2006 to 2011, Jeffrey was also the primary designer for the French fashion house Cotai. When Giuliano first conceived of creating his own literary imprint, Icon Editions, he became responsible for illustrating and designing 35 book covers, several hundred CDs, DVDs, as well as dozens of promotional posters, and eventually an entire collection of exclusive fashion and art. The expansive Design by Giuliano brand grew out of Jeffrey's impressive commitment to the arts and is the culmination of a lifetime's work by an extraordinarily talented and determined Renaissance man.
Icon Audio Arts. Thank you for listening.